It's 1 o'clock somewhere, a fantasy football podcast. With Jarrett. And Benny. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time. It's 1 o'clock somewhere, a fantasy football podcast.
Welcome in. It is 1 o'clock somewhere, your fantasy football podcast here with the 302 Birds. I'm Benny. He's Jarrett. We're coming to you on a Tuesday, and we are doing running back rankings today, Jarrett. This show, I love doing rankings episodes because people love the hot takes, number one. I love to hear what my co-host has to think about certain things, but also, I mean, like, what's more fun to talk about in terms of fantasy than running backs? It's in honest truth, it's the most important position in all of fantasy football.
Oh, I thank you. I like hearing you too. I do. But ultimately, I'm right there with you. Having a workhorse, having a stud running back, that number one guy, the Todd Gurley, his freaky year in 2014, a Le'Veon Bell, Adrian Peterson, the 2K yard runner. I mean, it's a good time. You know, running backs are the bulk of fantasy football. I mean, you often see them taken, anywhere 1-1, 1-5. They're all over the place in fantasy football, 1-1, 1-5. Anyway, I'm that excited to get into it with running backs. I'm losing my brain a little bit, so I'm ready to cut into it, brother.
Before we get into it, I did promise on our Sunday show we had a big announcement to make, and we will get to that later in the show. So I'll keep you guessing a little bit longer there. But do want to remind everyone you can follow us on social media at 1 o'clock somewhere. And if you ever have a big question that you don't want to ask on the show, maybe it's too big for comments on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, you can always email us 1 o'clock somewhere at gmail.com. So if you have a big question, fantasy advice, anything like that, you can always email us 1 o'clock somewhere at gmail.com. We'll discuss it on the show, but of course, we'll also give you an answer back on the email right there. All right. Before we get into anything here, Jared, we do have some breaking news. I'm just getting on my phone right now, so we'll pop up the breaking news graphic here. Najee Harris has signed with the New York Giants. So not any earth-shattering stuff. I know he's probably not going to get many carries. Probably going to be the RB3, but I don't know. I mean, I think Cam, again, we'll talk about during the running back rankings. Cam Scatterbo to me is just head and shoulders above everyone else in that backfield.
Yeah, I don't think this is necessarily going to shake up where I have Scatterbo at least. We're going to find how criminally low I have him, but that's just a whole nother conversation. That's interesting for me. If anything, is that just more like an ankle injury, kind of like someone else we're going to talk about? Maybe they're not 100% with Scatterbo, so it's just like a little bit of an insurance. Just something to
I actually think this impacts who's going to be the running back 2 for that team, or the backup running back for that team, because Tyrone Tracy did not look good. And I don't know, I just kind of always felt like the relationship between the Giants and Tracy has always kind of been a very you're here. It's almost like, you're dating a 6, but you're always looking to upgrade to like an 8 or a 10. And Tracy. I mean, Tracy's a good running back. Was good for
new regime too. They don't have any purpose to keep him.
This isn't he's not the guy they chose. It's Scatterbo, and then they want to build depth behind him. So picking up Najee Harris isn't a bad thing. I don't know how much Najee Harris even has left, though. So a
little bit of depth. If anything happens to Scatterbo, we'll all be running to the waivers week 13. That type of move. But
exactly.
Don't panic just yet.
Not at all. Don't panic at all about this either, Eagles fans or anyone from the NFC East. The Cowboys have signed Von Miller to be a new edge rusher to that defense. You're repping the Von Miller Texas A&M jersey there. That's awesome.
This is a bad boy. 2015 Von Miller. That's a good time. It's a good time.
Still wouldn't touch their defense with a 10-foot pole for fantasy, but maybe they're like a good matchup streamer defense if they're playing a bad offense. They paid Quinnen Williams. I don't think this changes any opinions of the Cowboys. I don't think they're going anywhere.
No, it's nice for him. He got another contract, but as one of those like Julio going to Baltimore, AB going to Tampa Bay. This is just a veteran still kicking it to see what's left. But Zadarius Smith got a contract too. I think I just saw earlier today. Talk about old pass rushers just
Yeah,
moving
I think
around.
it was from the Browns, but I think he actually backed out of it.
Oh.
So that tells you everything you need to know about Cleveland.
That's very good.
Because I saw on the NFL.
Take it back. I'm just gonna sit here. I don't want it. I don't want it. Thank you though.
It's like, wait a second. You got me a contract with who? I'm going where?
Yeah,
I'm good.
We call them back. It's okay. That's rough.
Yeah,
that's
pretty brutal there. But speaking of contracts, this one was one we talked about last night. Keenan Allen gets signed by the Colts. I think this one has a little more juice behind it for fantasy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't necessarily think this is going to like eat away at the Alec Pierce by any stretch of the imagination, but this has to be an inkling that he's not 100%. You saw that he's got injections last week, hasn't practiced, maybe won't practice till the beginning of the season. So the Colts making the necessary movements to make sure that they actually have receivers for Daniel Jones to throw the ball out. I mean, is it going to kill Alec Pierce in the long run? No, but this is just more of a, kind of like we were talking about with Scadaboo. Are they worried about his injury? Maybe not as much, but this one with Keenan Allen, Alec Pierce could miss a little bit of time, and Keenan Allen gets to fill a void for a little bit.
Yeah, I think you said it. I think the juice here is more of like what's going on with Alec Pierce. So if you're someone that's already drafted and you've drafted Alec Pierce, I'm a little alarmed at this. However, I'll throw a caveat into there. If you're a Josh Downs owner, I think this actually works well for you because I think this tells me one thing. This tells me there's not a lot of confidence in Alec Pierce, and they want to give Josh Downs help. They don't just want him running around there doing everything by himself. They want to give him some kind of like wide receiver to take some of the heat off of him. I think Keenan Allen still has enough there. So I think Josh Downs stock is trending up. I think Alec Pierce stock is trending down. Wouldn't touch Keenan Allen for fantasy purposes, but still very interesting nonetheless that they go out and get this guy. A believe it or not, I think he's a former teammate of Phillip Rivers. I think that's how long he's played. He played with Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers was on the team last year. I think he still is around the locker room a little bit. So it's kind of interesting they pick up Keenan Allen here late in the offseason. One final bit of you'd see what happens there. Just kind of giving it your wide receiver room. One final bit of news here. A quote from Roger Goodell yesterday. He said that he has no doubt that there will be an NFL team in the future on the international stage. And obviously, we know what's going on with the European games. They play in game every year in England and Germany and all over the place. And now we have the South American games and the Australian games. Kind of makes you wonder, like, where's that next team going to be? And logistically, how is this going to work if there's teams out there? And then again, for people like us, I mean, we cover fantasy football. We don't really necessarily care about like global political impacts of football, but it is just interesting to think about that. Like they're in the future. If Roger Goodell has his way in the future, there will be football teams outside of the U.S. and not even in our hemisphere. We're talking about like over in Europe.
And they doesn't care about the logistical of teams having to ruin sleep schedules and the whole when you get jet lag and that whole situation of teams in that like 3-week window where it's like, all right, we got a week leading up to them, a week leading after them. It's just going to become really chaotic. For one, that team, anyone having to travel to and from, it's going to mess with us too. Fantasy football. We're going to have to wake up early in the morning. We have the 9 a.m. London games. I'm not excited for that. You're telling me on a weekly basis, maybe like an every other week basis, we're going to have to actually keep track of where these guys are at. In the long run, like you were alluding to before we even cut into this, if they break this down and it's a whole divisional type thing, this is going to be interesting. I think 32 is a nice slice of the pie, the way that we do things, 16, the 4 and the 4. Maybe I'm a little old in that regard where it's like, don't change something. I don't like change, but I just think it'd be very interesting. I guess they thought it'd be really interesting too when we had 30, and then we did the Jaguars and the Panthers in 93 and 95. So,
and then the Texans, to me, like I see, I just the logistics of this. I only see this kind of going one way, and that is an entire division outside of the U.S. And I could understand if we're talking to like maybe adding a team in Canada, putting a team in Mexico. Maybe you want to branch out and even go down to South America, because logistically, like as far away as Brazil is, you could still, you're still in the same time zone. The flight's long, but you can still kind of make that work in terms of travel. Entire team in Europe, I would only see that as that could work in a division where you'd have like, situations where one team plays another and they kind of play each other for a little bit. Then they come to the States for like a road swing, come back, play each other, and then go back to the States for a road swing. That's kind of how I see that shaking out. And that's just because like it's not like it's 4 hours, not you're flying across the country when you go to Europe. Like it is a 8-hour flight to get to Europe, 8+ hour flight. And then, you think about, you said international. So that also makes you think like, well, they're playing games in Australia right now. There's talks about playing games elsewhere in the future. How big is this game going to grow? Baseball is an international game at this point because everyone plays it. Basketball is an international game. The original football, soccer, as we know here in America, that's an international game. Hockey is an international game. I've never really thought of football as an international game. I've kind of thought of it as like an American game that's an international attraction. And the idea that, like, I just brainstormed, we talked about it before the show, there could be teams all the way out in the Pacific Islands, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, even, South Korea. It's hard for me to fathom that football could become that big and spread across the globe that much.
Yeah, we've been teeing it up, like you said at the beginning of this, we've been teeing it up for a minute with the European games, over in Belgium, over in France, over in London, down in South America. I mean, we've been teeing this up for a minute now. So Roger's been foaming at the mouth for this opportunity, and it's coming a little later than I thought. I remember being in high school, like 2018, 2019, and we were starting to have these conversations with Jacksonville potentially moving over there. But it'll be interesting. It'll be fun.
It will be. It will be. But with all the news out of the way, let's dive right into the rankings. We're trying to make this show a lot quicker than when we had our quarterback show, because with quarterbacks, there's just so much to talk about. But with running backs, the good thing about our running back rankings is for a lot of them, we actually do agree. And that's where we'll start with our
the big boys
tier. Yeah, the big boys. We call this the elite tier. These are your first round running backs, guys that are going to go well in the first round, within the first 8 picks. And yeah, Jarrett and I both agree. Jahmyr Gibbs at the 1, Bijan Robinson at the 2. I mean, to me, there might be a little gap between Bijan and Christian McCaffrey, but I think, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, those are the 1 and the 2.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You see your 1-1 in general? Like you're drafting 12-man, 10-man. Is Gibbs your 1-1?
Gibbs is my, I flirted with the idea of putting Bijan 101, and then maybe this is an overreaction. Call me a little bit of an overreactor. Seeing the Falcons' dysfunction in the preseason kind of made me go, yeah, to me, there's no way the Lions are not going to have at least a competent offense. Like, I think the Lions, to me, it's a situation like this. I think the ceiling for Bijan and Gibbs is the same height. I think the floors are different levels. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is on a split level, and Bijan could have a pretty deep basement. Yeah,
when I'm looking at running backs, I want the better offense. I want good football teams that win the ball, win games, and the Lions are going to be better than the Falcons. I was a little back and forth, and probably like you asked me, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago when I started the mock, did a couple underdog mocks. I was kind of just in there on Sleeper, messing around when the kickers were still messed up on mock drafts. I was probably just flirting with Bijan, flirting with Jamar. But yeah, I think confidently right now, Jahmyr, then we do Jamar, then Bijan for me. And then the gap with Christian and Bijan's interesting because, Christian's dealing with, he's not at practice again. Here we go, another offseason. I personally think that's San Francisco just going, we're worried about our receivers right now. You sit. We know what you are. You know what you are. Just get your nutrients, get your shots, do what you have to do on the sideline. And we'll make sure that you're right for week 1. But for me, the gap with Bijan and Christian isn't that much. Like if I'm in 3 leagues and I had the same pick, I wouldn't pick Bijan 3 times in a row. I would probably go Bijan, Christian, Bijan, Christian, Bijan, Christian. I'd have some fun with it.
Yeah, you and I both agree. There's a bit of a gap between Bijan and Christian McCaffrey. That's just because of the injury history. But beyond that, again, I've echoed on this show. If you draft a guy or you avoid drafting a guy based on their injury history, you probably shouldn't play fantasy football altogether. That being said, I think within this tier there's tier 1 elite A and there's tier 1 elite A B, and that would be definitively Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor.
I agree.
The 49ers offense already has a bunch of injuries. The Colts, you don't really know how they're going to look. And plus the kind of the thought of the second half of last season in the back of your head, maybe, picking those guys. I think when I recuse myself a little bit, it's more picking those guys ahead of Bijan or Jahmyr Gibbs. It's a little too much for my taste. But the guy I kind of like, and I have him 5th right here, but I really like the upside of him. I think there is a very realistic opportunity for him to be the number 1 running back in fantasy is James Cook. I just, they added DJ Moore. I think that takes away maybe some passing stuff, but I think James Cook, with Joe Brady now ascending as the head coach, having more of a say on the overall team and the way things are going to be done. I think James Cook is a rocket to the moon right now in terms of fantasy. If you have that 7, 8, 9, 10 pick and he's in that range, yeah, I'm hammering James Cook every single time. I think he's going to have a fantastic year.
It was like 2 years ago. Everyone was like, there's no way he gets like 18 or 17. That was however many touchdowns he had. There's no way he repeats that. And then last year, everyone didn't take him, and then we're mad because the yardage, and he had like 10 or 12 touchdowns. And now it's this year. It's, he's not going to repeat on the production. It's like, why wouldn't they? Joe Brady was ecstatic when they drafted him. He's now the head coach. Why not? If it's not broke, why fix it? Yeah, all the 5 of these guys, you can't go wrong.
Not at all. So we agree on. That's why the graphics nice and big there. But this is where we disagree. Here we go. So now we're going to move on to the second tier. So I call this tier the bell cows. I've talked about it before. I have 6 running backs in this range that I absolutely love. All 6 of them, plus another one, they're kind of in this range right here. And these are guys that I think if you take them, these are number 1 caliber running backs. These are guys you're grabbing. They're your first running back on your team. Some of these guys, I'd love to have my first and my second running back. And if you have that, you are, in my opinion, you're in the echelon of being a complete league winner. But for me, I mean, we've talked about it. I love what the Raiders are doing. I think they've had a great offseason. I'm not saying they're a playoff team just yet, but what I am saying is I think there's opportunities here for Ashton Genty to ascend the throne a little bit here in the fantasy rankings and finally deliver on the promise that he was as a second overall pick.
Yeah, I'm not that far behind on you. He's 9 for me. I'm not out on the idea of Genty at all by any stretch. You love the Elton Jenkins. You love bringing in Tyler Linderbaum. They bring in Kubiak now being the offensive coordinator / play caller. Hopefully the offense can do enough for Genty. You saw what he was dealing with, the robust, terrible offense last year. Now new and improved. I am expecting an increase, right? Like I'm not expecting Ashton Genty to kind of fall on his face, and the ADP I think is kind of baked into that right now. I think people are kind of like, we're expecting it, but we don't want to say it. But we know what this is. The math on Ashton Genty, the second-year running backs, I mean, they go absolutely nuclear half the time. And Ashton Genty, the talent's there, the ability is there. So for me, my rankings kind of just more baked in on the Devon Achane, Kenny Walk, I think. We'll talk about him in a sec. But for me, my number 6, Devon Achane. No biases, I promise. I am an Aggies fan, but no biases, I promise. I didn't just want to say I had my 5 and 6 running back on my dynasty team either. But I really, for Achane, it's the Christian McCaffrey effect. It's the fact that he very well could lead them in rushing yards, catches, receiving yards. Like Achane could just be a total package. And it's the same thing that we said if you're going to be scared of drafting an injury-riddled guy, aka a little guy that's going to get a huge workload in Devon Achane. I've played that game before, and I've swung out and missed on the Matt Fortes and the Le'Veon Bells and the Ezekiel Elliott's of the world. That Devon Achane's just someone for me where I can't. If he's there, in the world where Achane and Kenny Walk, I'm probably taking Devon Achane 9 times out of 10. Give me Kenny Walk on another day. But I value my catches so much. So Achane's at 6 for me.
Yeah, I don't have him in my bell cow backlist, and that I think I'll explain that when we get to the next tier. I do have him one tier down, so there is a stark disagreement between me and Jarrett on Devon Achane. That being said, if he's there for you in fantasy, I have my preferred running backs that I like, and then there's Devon Achane, who I still very much like. I'll explain my rationale there momentarily, but somebody's got to do something for Miami. And to me, Devon Achane seems like that's just going to be the back. He's going to get the usage. We'll talk about that later, but he's going to get the usage, and that spins off into why I have him a tier a little bit lower. But that being said, for the most part, we agree with a lot in this tier. We both have Kenny Walker at 7. We both have Chase Brown at 8. We both have Saquon and Derrick Henry in this group. And Ashton Genty as well, though a little higher than you. But yeah, to me, like Kenneth Walker, love the fit in Kansas City. Chase Brown, I think he's very quickly ascending up to the ranks of being a possible elite running back. There's just too many cooks in the kitchen right now for Cincinnati. And then again, like Saquon and Derrick Henry kind of go hand in hand. Even during their down years, they're still running backs that you kind of have to start. They're kind of in that, 11 to 15 range. And like, you're still starting that for fantasy purposes, even though it might not be what you wanted or might not be where you got them. It might be a little over ADP on them. They're still solid running backs, and you can't really, fault them for that.
It's funny looking at this list for mine, and it's like seeing Saquon and Derrick at the bottom, and it's like, well, why would I have the lesser running backs below the other ones? And I'm realizing in live time just how much of a fiend I am for running backs that catch the ball. I'm realizing the problem I have here, Betty. PPR is an addiction.
I also think like I think there is, and I do believe this, when you have guys and when you've drafted guys historically on your fantasy teams, get a familiarity with them. And when you go to do your rankings, you tend to like work with that familiarity a little bit. You'll be like, oh, well, I've had Kenneth Walker on my team before. He's always great. I love him. He's going to be my 7th running back. And then like, I've never had a Devon Achane on any of my fantasy teams. So there might be that lack of familiarity where I'm like, I just kind of see the fantasy football that people enjoy when it comes to Devon Achane. I don't live it, that sort of thing.
I see the people that win the lottery. I just don't.
Yeah. I don't play, I've never scratched off and saw thousands of dollars.
It's a good time. It'll help you, Betty. It'll help you. Devon Achane's done me wonders.
maybe this, listen, if I've said it before, the 6 running backs I have here, plus Kyron Williams, I'll talk about in a second. I want 2 of them in my drafts. I want 2 of them. So, if I've enjoyed picking towards the back end of drafts, if I come away with Ashton Genty and Derrick Henry, or Ashton Genty and Kenneth Walker, Chase Brown and Derrick Henry, like I want 2 of these 6 running backs. However, I've started to kind of talk myself out of one, and this is a guy who's not even in your tier 2. That's Amari Hampton. And to start this offseason, if I was any higher on Amari Hampton, I probably would have been put on a watch list. I would have been stalking him. I was in love with him because last year I had him on my fantasy team, and while I got that little taste of what he can do, I was so infatuated with the pairing of him and Mike McDaniels together. Then this offseason, or at least training camp, started, and there's been a lot of hype around Keaton Mitchell, and that's got me a little nervous on Amari Hampton. I moved him down to like the bottom of this tier for me, or the final of my 6 running backs that I like. I still will draft him if he's there for me, and the other running backs aren't. But is that why you don't have him as high? Is it the injury from last year? Is it that you're not really hyped on Mike McDaniel, the matchup? Like, why is Amari Hampton not in this tier as a nice, solid bell cow running back for you?
He's literally right outside, right? Like I have him. Yeah. I have Jacobs, Hampton. They're my next 2 running backs. It's not like an anti. It's just preferably Chase, Genty, Saquon, Derrick. What their offenses have to provide. I am more of I think the Chargers are just going to let Herbert go on just an absolute tear. Okay. And that's kind of where I piggyback off of what you're saying with the Keaton Mitchell, that maybe it just becomes an air raid type of offense. Hampton at the end of the season is looking at 800 and I don't know, from anywhere from 8 to 12 touchdowns, which is fine. It's serviceable. It does the job. But I view him as almost like a Kyron Williams. I don't expect him to necessarily knock your socks off, get 150, 2 tugs, and like 5 catches for 40, that crazy fantasy finish that we want. Hampton is a really unique running back. I love the tape coming out of North Carolina. I really love the pairing with Harbaugh, but I am with you with the Keaton Mitchell is one for me. Mike McDaniel, I think, leans more of Justin Herbert and helping the passing game. Not that it doesn't help Hampton, but it just limits his opportunity, especially, add in the mix of Keaton Mitchell. And just in general, the injury, I guess, is probably like a 5% little discount, but no, I don't have any fears with him. Truthfully, I'm cool with his ADP. I'm pretty sure it's like a 4.4, 4.6 right now, going like mid fourth, maybe early fourth, depending on your draft. I have no issues with that. Honestly, from anywhere between Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, and Hampton, like the 3 stretch of them, I think I kind of view them all in like the same, like, all right, I know who you are, but I'm not expecting you to leave a game with 5 or 6 catches.
No, and I think this, when we get to this next tier, that kind of starts this conversation of like, these guys are still solid. It's just that's where we start to kind of see the roof may not be as, the ceiling might not be as high. The roof might not be as high on the house you're buying here. That being said, people are hyped on Blake Corum and what the Rams will do. I just think every year, Kyren Williams is kind of the poor man's Derrick Henry. I would say, like, not in terms of the way they run at all. What I'm saying for fantasy purposes is, every year people doubt
try
Derrick
to kick
Henry.
him out the door every year.
They're done. They're ready for tomorrow,
for
and
no
it's like,
reason.
But here he is, and they're going to keep doing the same thing until the wheels fall off. And Kyren Williams the same way. The Rams, Sean McVay does not like to have to cycle guys in and out. He doesn't like substitutions. He wants a set. He wants to run down the field with that set, and that's it. And so I don't think you're going to see Kyren come off very often. I think he might maybe lose a little bit of carries to Blake Corum. But the idea that like Blake Corum's going to all of a sudden just take over everything, that's just not going to happen until Kyren's not there anymore. And they paid Kyren last year. So to me, Kyren is a bell cow. He's on the back end of the bell cows. That being said, if I come away with Ashton Genty and I cannot, pass up a wide receiver that fell, I'm comfortable getting into the mid-third round, where Kyren Williams is probably going to be there. That's fine for me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't view this as, if you want an example, like almost like Gibbs Monty, the Rams aren't trying to do that here. I mean, maybe the precedent's because he was a 5th round pick. He kind of worked with nothing out of Notre Dame. The Rams were, all right, you're here now. Like, and now everyone, since Blake Corum got drafted, big time stud out of Michigan, winning the Natty, the whole, what was he? He was a Heisman finalist, running for like 20 touchdowns, doing his thing at Michigan. Everyone got infatuated with Corum the second he started wearing a Rams jersey. But the truth of the matter is, Kyren Williams is a good pound-for-pound running back. He's not James Cook. He's not Saquon Barkley. He's not Devon Achane. But at the same time, he's going to do the dirty work. He's going to get 20, 22 carries a game. Hope to God he gets in the end zone instead of Blake Corum. And I think that's kind of where I'm at with my ranking with him, is that it's not a 50-50 with Corum and Kyren, but the second they get in the end zone, it's a 50-50 for who's going to get a touchdown. And that is maddening beyond belief. And so it's take Kyren with Blake Corum could be there. I do almost want to even put, because we were texting before, like with the tiers and how we were going to talk about running backs for handcuffs. I
was going to say Corum's a great handcuff. Yeah.
You have Kyren. I would love to leave with Blake Corum.
I don't know if I would put Blake Corum as the number 1 handcuff, but he's definitely a top 5 handcuff for me. Like if you're going to draft Kyren Williams later in the draft, Corum's there. Now you're going to have Corum's not going to be like a 14th round pick or a 13th round pick, but Corum's going to be, you're going to have to pay up a little bit to get him, but like having Kyren Williams and the security of having Blake Corum later in the season, if something happens, you'll at least have that security. And then there might be even some games where you can start Corum or put him in your flex like that. Like, there's going to be situations where Kyren's getting the passing work. Yeah. Like Kyren's getting the passing work. Corum might punch in for a touchdown. It gets you by on a week where you don't have a Derrick Henry starting. I think that's not absurd to do. All right, let's get to this tier 3. These are like the low end running back ones. So these are guys that I think, like, they're your running back 1, you're fine. You'd probably want to double up on these guys or maybe even triple up on these guys in your draft. So that way you have that blanket of security. But that being said, these are still guys that if you're starting them at your running back position, you're I think you're fine. You're not desperate just yet, but you probably should have grabbed a running back before. And this is where I have Devon Achane. He's 13th for me. We're 7 spots off. And the production's going to be there. I think he's going to get used a lot in Miami. I think the Dolphins are going to be horrible.
Fair.
Like that's the problem is like for the longest time, I used to always say like, these bad offenses. And I think this is a good strategy in general. When it comes to a bad offense in the NFL, you don't want to ignore them completely. You want to be able to milk the little bit of fantasy production you can get out of them and find the right guy, but you don't want to have to pay for it. And I think with where Devon Achane is going in drafts, I mean, he's a second round pick, kind of middle back end of the second round. I've seen him, dip into the third, but for the most part, he's that second round running back. I just don't like the value. I really don't, especially for an offense that, I like Malik Willis. I like what I saw last year. They don't have any receivers. Greg Dulcich at tight end is kind of the guy I'm actually kind of targeting out of the Dolphins, just because he's for free. I mean, you can get him for free at the back end of your draft. And if he's bad, you just cut him. Like you just throw him to the trash and that's it. And you just don't deal with the Dolphins anymore. And, I still think Devon Achane is going to finish as a really solid running back in fantasy. My fear is that it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be very heavily reliant on touchdowns, not a lot of yards, maybe a lot of catches, but not a lot of yards. And I know for PPR, that's great, but like, it's going to be frustrating. It's going to be very heavily emphasized on passing. And I'm not even sure there's going to be a lot of touchdowns in this offense. I think there's a realistic possibility the Dolphins are one of the 3, if not 2 worst teams in the NFL with the Cardinals and Falcons.
That I can't argue that, when you talk about just like the logistics, the team, the stature, just in general, how many times are they going to be actually able to put the ball in his hands, risk reward, just punting the ball. He was the only player last year, and I'm just giving a little bit of the nugget because you came at my boy hard there. So I feel like I just got to give a little bit of.
No, I think he's very talented. I just think the situation's crappy.
And I don't disagree that at all. I'd be blind and ignorant to sit here and try and give a Miami Dolphin maybe second place in the East chair like that. That ain't happening. They will be competing for the first pick in the draft more than likely, top 10 at most. So I can't argue that theory at all. But for him, he's the only for PPR standards. If you're in standard, I get the trepidations. But if you're PPR, I think he's a home run smash candidate. He's the only player last year to have 10 points in every single game, 11 being his lowest, 1130. So I just, for PPR standards, the yards may not be there, but he's the only player to have literally above 10 every week. So,
hey,
just a little
again, if I come out of a draft with Devon Achane as my RB2, I'm not upset by that, especially if I can land. Yeah, especially if I can land a good like wide receiver to pair with that, or if you want to go with like Trey McBride in the second round and somehow Devon Achane gets back to you in the third. Sure, go ahead.
Neighbors and Devon Achane, I get what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
If it's Malik Neighbors and Devon Achane, little nervous, little nervous about that. But beyond that, I mean, we're pretty much in lockstep with Josh Jacobs. See, you have Amari and Hampton there. Interesting. Kyron Williams right there. You're a little more lower than me on them, but again, not by much. In that sense, but Breece Hall's right there. Travis Achane right there.
Travis Achane is my guy. I've been taking him in every single mock draft, all the underdogs. He is a play where it's automatic. If I see him round 4, even round 5, and he swings back to me, if I have a later pick and I didn't see him the first time, I've just slotted his name in every time as my RB2, even a flex, depending on how I've drafted. I am in love with the idea, the opportunity. I think I'm on the Saints bandwagon. It sucks Jordan Tyson doesn't have knees right now, but I am kind of on this Saints high right now, and I am all aboard Travis Achane.
I like the talent. I think him being in New Orleans is a good fit. I really do. I think it's a really good fit. Obviously, I mean, I'm in lockstep with you. We're only just off by a spot. The only trepidation that I have with it is Alvin Kamara is still there.
Yeah. Yeah, and they did just say that he's going to take down third down opportunity. So it's like,
that little, that's a little like, oh, come on. Like, I really,
like, why?
You know what?
Go shoot.
I think the best way to describe this offseason from the draft to a lot of what you saw in free agency is a lot of really fun players landed in the absolute worst situations where it's like multiple running backs. Like we'll talk about in the next tier where Jeremiah Love is. You know, you don't even have me and you both moved him out of this tier. But just great running back, super talented. Ankle injury. We'll talk about the ankle injury, but like, like horrible situation in Arizona, frustrating situation in Arizona. Carnell Tate, love the talent. I'm a Penn State fan. I hate Ohio. I'm a Penn State fan right here. I hate Ohio State with a passion, but like Carnell Tate is a super talented receiver. He goes where most wide receivers go to die in the Tennessee Titans. Jordan Tyson is a very talented wide receiver, big body guy, can get out in front, goes to the Saints where they
like the door. I like that one.
I liked it. I like. Well, we'll talk about it when he's injured, obviously. But Chris Olave is already there. And it's just like, okay, it would have been more fun if he ended up with a team that like has no number one receiver, and he kind of had to be. And then you're like, okay, now you're talking about
for sure.
That's just it to me. It's like there were better situations for all these guys to land in, and Travis Etienne going to the Saints. It's like, I love it. I think next year, if they can kind of figure out what's going on with Kamara, maybe get him out the door. Travis Etienne getting all the carries in an offense that has two good receivers, a solid tight end in Juwan Johnson, a better offensive line, and hopefully a quarterback that sorts itself out with Tyler Shuck, and he's kind of becomes the future there. I think I'd be higher on Etienne next year. Travis, that's where I'd be. But for right now, just has me a little nervous. That being said, I'm super high on DeAndre Swift. At first, I thought Kyle Managai was going to be the one that comes in and just kind of steals all the goal line stuff. It kind of seems like we're actually going to get more of that David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs split. And at first, I thought, well, since Managai's younger, it would kind of be the reverse of that, and like more Montgomery and less Swift. But it looks like it's going to be kind of the same thing we saw when it was Gibbs and Montgomery in Detroit. It's going to be Swift and then Managai, Gibbs, and then Montgomery. And I think if that's the case, you got to get DeAndre Swift on your fantasy roster if you can. I'm actually very high on DeAndre Swift as an RB2, or, if you get to this point, maybe even a flex option for you.
Yeah, it was a smash last year, extremely undervalued. It was going round 8. No one wanted anything to do with him, and he ended up finishing as a fine RB2 for your team. That is their approach, and add on top of that, Kyle Managai is week to week with a knee. So just a little bit of, when we're trying to get our feet right, getting into the beginning of the season, DeAndre Swift might start off a lot quicker without Kyle Managai, even adding more to it. I'm more than fine with Swift. There's honestly, for me in this, like from 19 up, I don't really know how many years I've been able to say this. I feel like the second we get past 12, I'm like, I just don't like these running backs.
Yeah.
I think Bucky and Swift. Bucky. I am really fine with Bucky. I don't even know why I was going. I'm cool with 19 and up, but for me, I really don't have any issues or inklings. Like if I'm going 3 receivers and I have to take one of these guys as my last option, DeAndre Swift. I've seen worse.
Yeah. I mean, even Javonte, like getting a piece of Dallas's offense, Dallas, who Eagles fan aside, I don't really like the Cowboys, but that being said, they're still going to be a very potent offense. You want to slice that. And for where he's going, that's a great deal. Cam Skattebo, I think the Giants are literally just going to run him into the ground. They're just like, he's our guy, very clearly Tracy can't do anything. That's why they're picking up Najee Harris for pass blocking. Tracy can't do anything. I think it's just going to be Skattebo getting a lot of the catches, Skattebo getting all of the touches out of the backfield, and then Najee Harris coming in whenever they have to throw it deep just for some extra blocking. I really don't see a reality where Skattebo leaves the field for the Giants offense very much. So yeah, I'm over the moon about Skattebo, and really, again, if you leave a draft where Skattebo's your RB1, like, yeah, I have him at 19, but I still think he's a solid running back. And there's still plenty of talent in the running back position where, hey, you can survive with Skattebo at your number 1 running back. Where I start to differ a little bit is Breece Hall. And I know I have him above Skattebo. Got the groin injury now. I don't really think the Jets are going to be that good.
Yeah, that will have to mess with the rankings a little bit.
Yeah,
I'll probably have him a little lower too.
I probably should have moved him below Cam Skattebo here. Kind of talk myself into it right now, but for right now, I think Breece Hall is still going to. He has plenty of talent.
Breece is about to fall in drafts, and no one's gonna have any idea what to do with him for the next 2 weeks. So, at home drafts, at your boards where you're not looking at your phone or looking at a computer, he is going to fall. If everyone in that league knows that he's dealing with a groin, that I will swoop him up. You book this, mark this, write this down. It don't matter. I take him round 5, and I wouldn't think twice. I won't let him go 2 or 3 below that ADP and go, dang, I wish I got him. I'll take him the round before he should have went and live the fight another day.
Let him drop, grab him at the bottom, and let's see if he works his way up. That's it for me right there. Is that's where I want. Breece Hall is one of these guys where it's like I want to get him at the absolute lowest point. Because the other thing is this, and I've talked about it before. Are you really gonna you're gonna have to live with yourself the rest of the season where every Sunday you're staring at a Jets game?
Doing it with a Devon Achane. I'm out of the whole mantra of bad running backs with bad teams. It helps. I want the better running back with a coin flip, but they just paid Hall. And who else is there? Hall, Garrett Wilson, Kenyon Sadiq, Omar Cooper, the 2 rookies.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see a situation where it's going to be a lot of Omar Cooper.
And that offensive line is a lot better than we give it credit for. The tackles are a lot better. Joe Tippmann in the middle, Lake Tomlinson at guard. The offensive line really isn't that bad, but for me, it's the money. He's given the money. This isn't like a 1-year deal. All right, you got to prove it to us. Now we're going to pay you. They gave him everything up front. So you talk about opportunity. I just think Breece is going to just smash it and some. If the groin wasn't there, I'd probably have him a little higher just because I am really high on Breece the last couple of weeks. But yeah, the groin, I immediately went to my dynasty waivers and was like, where's Braylon Allen?
I think, again, Braylon Allen, another solid handcuff right there. We've got someone already targeting me right here. The Kelly Green room. Man, A-Chain that low is
he's
wild.
Doing it again. He did it with Mahomes, and now he's doing it with A-Chain. It's crazy.
Hey, I'm not saying I wouldn't draft Devon Achane. I would totally draft Devon Achane. What I'm saying is, for where he's currently going at ADP, I've talked about this before. I foresee a lot of ways that guys can go and finish in the top 5. For Devon Achane at ADP right now, I can see him disappointing more than I can see him satisfying, but not by much. I don't think it's going to be like one of these years where you're like, man, I drafted Devon Achane in the second, and he ended up being like running back 20. No.
Last year, at least, you were taking him beginning around 5, middle around 4. That ADP kind of did sit there when you were going Achane. It was the smaller guy. What is he going to be in Miami? Okay, but now, like you're saying, the ADP is almost guaranteeing, okay, he has to be a top 10 guy for your team, or it is going to mess with your fantasy roster.
Yeah, I, again, took the words out of my mouth. Jarrett, you nailed it. It's just, you want a little extra meat on the bone when you draft a guy. You want to be able to draft a guy and say, okay, there's a little extra meat there. I mean, after the first round, obviously, you just want to be like, okay, got this guy. There's room to move up. For me, with how bad the Dolphins are going to be, I just don't foresee that. Final tier here, and after this, we can kind of mention we can mention a little bit about handcuffs. You're a little bit higher on Bucky Irving than me. I had this thought before we got into training camp, and they went out and they signed Kenny Gainwell. And again, I'm throwing my Eagles fandom aside. I think Kenny Gainwell's a solid running back. I was pretty cool to see what he did in Pittsburgh last year. I know the Steelers fans loved him, and they were so upset to see him go.
Really?
They were. I mean, I saw Steelers fans on social media were losing their mind. The team did not keep Kenny Gainwell. They were losing their mind. And
okay,
I get it. I mean, he's a good receiving back. You can put him in on passing downs.
I didn't mean that like they didn't. I meant that as like okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because they have Jalen Warren, and I have Jalen Warren on my rankings here. But like, I just think like Bucky Irving was really great the few years had with the kind of run he had with the Buccaneers when it was literally just him, and Rachaad White almost felt like an annoyance because it was almost like, oh wow, Bucky Irving breaks a big play, Rachaad White gets tackled for 2 yards, and then they just kind of go back and forth with that. To me, Kenny Gainwell's a lot better of a 2 than Rachaad White is. I still think this is Bucky Irving's backfield, but I do see a scenario where this is more split. And if it is closer to a 50-50 or even a 60-40 split, I don't think Bucky Irving's going to have that high of a ceiling. I think the floor is going to be high, but the ceiling might be low.
I mean, my thing with Bucky has just been the whole injury basis. Kenny Gainwell,
Yeah, the shoulder. I don't like the shoulder injury either. Like the shoulder injury
and
is weird.
that's definitely valid. I haven't had the ability to yank him yet, and I need Bucky. I need some of that electricity on my fantasy team for what he's able to provide. I'm looking at it right now. Kenny Gainwell's impressing Baker Mayfield at training camp. You're not the first person to tell me about this Kenneth Gainwell. But I can't. I just can't be worried. I'm not gonna not take players based off of. There can be another good complimentary back, but for what they want to do and for what Bucky is, for me, and maybe I'm the hunch guy on Bucky. I'm just expecting this injury to kind of roll over on itself. Sucks. He's a running back, and he's gonna have to deal with the constant nonstop, over and over again. But his money, I think, comes in catching passes. For what this offense is, they lost Mike Evans. Chris Godwin's apparently lighting it up. Egbuka, what they're going to be. I think, in Bucky's wheelhouse, he can be a guy that he leaves with, maybe 4 or 5 catches a game. And I think maybe that's what I did, maybe a little anticipating too much of my rankings. I did heavily on the PPR side, just more like pass catchers and less, actual bell cows and touchdowns. So that's definitely where that factors into that. But Bucky, there are limitations. I don't think he's a home run by any stretch.
Yeah, no, and while you were ranking based off of PPR and applying a lot of science, I the way I do mine is this: I look at the numbers and I apply vibes to it. I'm very, very big on what's going on with the vibes. Who's getting a lot of the talk of camp. And while I'm kind of talking myself backwards here. I kind of talked up Kenny Gainwell, and now I'm bringing it back. The reason why I didn't completely bottom out on Bucky Irving is they signed Kenny Gainwell, and then I haven't heard anything since. So while that kind of, marker is kind of hovering there for the Buccaneers, Bucky's still fine. Like everyone on this list here, Quinshon Judkins, love him. Jalen Warren, I think Jalen Warren's the one where if you take him, I would also probably double down and try to grab Rico Dowdle, if you can. Tony Pollard, I'm really starting to love Tony Pollard. We'll talk about him in a second. But all these guys are just, they're in this range where it's like, man, if you get Bucky, you might as well grab Kenny Gainwell and to be your RB4, or maybe like another backup running back there. But I was very heavy on the vibes. I don't like his shoulder injury. But that being said, since training camp has started, Bucky's kind of been getting gold stars left and right for Buccaneers players. And, at the end of the day, maybe my speculation, maybe my over speculation on Kenny Gainwell signing is kind of going to reflect on things there. But I've had Bucky Irving for half a season in fantasy. I traded him, and the 1 year he went off, and I traded him right before he went off. And I miss him. I missed him ever since.
So we're salty with the ranking. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Not salty on Quinshon Judkins. We agree. I think we also can both agree that the Browns are going to be bad, and both of the Browns quarterbacks are bad. I watched I watched a little bit about their preseason game. Kind of went back and saw some highlights. Just had a morbid curiosity to see did Todd Monken rub off at all on Deshaun Watson, and I just realized it's a horrible choice of words. But they're horrible. I can't stress to you enough how bad the Browns quarterback situation is. And I feel bad because there's some cool players on this roster. I love Harold Fannin. I love Quinshon Judkins. I think Casey Concepcion's going to be a great receiver. I think Denzel Boston is going to be an awesome receiver. If I was a betting man, I'd be throwing some money on his offensive rookie of the year bets right there. That being said, I just don't. They're going to be one of these teams that has a low ceiling for me, and that's why I moved Quinshon. I had him higher. I moved him down. I probably should move him down further in these rankings just because I saw how bad that offense is going to be. I just don't think there's going to be many games where they're going to be leading. So that rushing might be impacted by Judkins.
No, I don't disagree with anything you just said there. I mean, it's kind of the same thing for me with Judkins and Scadaboo. Lack thereof on offense, I think it kind of just makes it really easy for defenses to hone in, drop 7-8 men in the box and take care of the best 2 players on those respected offenses. I don't think Scadaboo and Judkins are less than. I actually think they're both really talented, really fine running backs. But at the end of the day, when you have quarterbacks that can't read the back of a cereal box trying to throw passes, and now you got to deal with these two.
It's so bad.
Kind of just comes in the ranking. So
yeah.
sorry, not sorry. Get on better teams, nerd.
Final running back I'll talk about, then I'll let you go with some of yours, and we'll talk about Jeremiah Love coming up in a second too. I really like Tony Pollard. This is gonna be quick. I just think, the Tennessee offense, it looks like a better running offense right now, and I think they'll need to do that to spell Cam Ward while he still tries to figure some things out. The nuances of the Brian Daboll offense. Cam Ward just didn't flash for me in that preseason game, but then again, I think they're still trying to get some cohesiveness there. I was more alarmed by how there's just no chemistry between Cam Ward and Carnell Tate. So for me, if you're going to grab any piece of the Tennessee offense, I like the idea of Tony Pollard. Looks like he's got some juice again too, which is cool.
Yeah, Carnell Tate, I expect him to be a second half year. Watch, proceed with caution type deal. But Tony Pollard, best man, young quarterback's best man's friend. Whether it's hopefully Cam Ward learning that he can check the ball down, or that Tennessee's got a really fine offensive line. And Tony P's a lot better than Tajay Spears. So hopefully that's finally put to bed.
So you see, you have Bashal Tootin here. I really like Bashal Tootin. We talked about it during the mock draft. And by the way, mock draft episode available on Spotify. You can look up 1 o'clock somewhere. It's the most recent episode we came out with. I like Bashal Tootin. I think he's got a lot of juice. If he can, avoid any mistakes, I think the job is his. I think they're probably going to give him multiple chances, multiple cracks at the RB1, just because I don't think they really want Chris Rodriguez as the RB1. Mm-hmm. That being said, Bashal Tootin's another one where if you draft him, you can get Chris Rodriguez for free at this point in drafts. I would double down and get Rodriguez just to be 100% safe.
Yeah, if you're listening to us, you're a fantasy football nut, you're prepared, you're getting ready for your draft. So you heard about this excitement a year ago. It was already kind of baked in. Everyone was already like, yeah, ETN's cool, but the young, fast Bashal Tootin out of this random college is going to come out. Bashal Tootin was everyone's random delight midway through the offseason last year. And now it's kind of coming to fruition. Obviously, Travis Etienne going over to New Orleans. The road's kind of clear. Chris Rodriguez, like you were bringing up, is the backup, and it's pretty much his. I mean, he was listed as the unofficial starter on the first depth chart. I think it was 2 days ago. And the young general manager, it's not Liam Cohen, but the young general manager.
It's Livingstone. I think is it Livingstone? No. What is his name? I forget. He's like 34 years old. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the hype is, you talk about they got rid of A-Chain, but they drafted Tootin. This wasn't like, all right, now it's best man type of scenario. No. They drafted Tootin.
Gladstone, James Gladstone.
Youngest general manager in NFL history, drafting Bashal Tootin so he can make fart jokes anyway. But I'm just excited. Speed, he's got the ability. There's not a lot here. I mean, when you look at the games last year, he's only got a little bit of tape. He's got one game where he had more than 10 carries. He had 15, and that was his best for 74. I mean, you just lack of opportunity with Travis Etienne. It was a weird beginning of the year with the Jags, and then it kind of evened out to be A-Chain's role. When he was still going as Etienne, it was kind of evened out. But, I'm all for Bashal too. And I think the Jaguars offense could be one of those sneaky little top 10 guys that we're not really expecting. And if they just take off, and he's a guy at the end of the year that's got 15 and barely over 1,000 or barely under 1,000, I'm excited for Bashal too, and I don't want to not be left behind on the hype train.
No, I agree. Bashal Tootin just looks too good, and you want a piece of offenses that could be top 10s, not ones that are already top 10s. It's kind of baked in there in terms of ADP. You want to be able to see what offenses could make that leap. Jacksonville's obviously one of them, with a mobile quarterback, some pretty talented receivers. Parker Washington's actually a guy that's catching my eye, and then obviously you have good low end tight ends, good running backs right there. It just seems like there's a lot of talent there. The last running back we'll talk about, and for this, I want to pull up the injury graphic, which I will in a second, is Jeremiah Love. We kind of teased it a little bit here at the start of the show. But yeah, an injury to Jeremiah Love, ankle sprain, not the type of sprain you want. So yeah, you're just like, oh my God, the talent is there. It's just the worst situation possible. Crowded backfield, bad team, bad offense, and now an injury. I'm fully out. This just isn't the year for Jeremiah Love. I'll double down next year when Tyler Algier is off this team. James Conner is doing something else. and it's just Jeremiah Love back there with a better quarterback. I think with a better quarterback, I'd be way more confident in Jeremiah Love. But the injury and this all aside, it's just too messy.
If we did this 2 days ago, I'd actually have an argument for you. But now that we have the high ankle sprain, if you aren't aware of it for fantasy football terminology, it's death. It's not an ACL, but it's basically death. I mean, you come back week 7 or week 8 because he's having it before the season. So he'll come back like week 6, week 7, hopefully week 8. And then every single week, you're going to have to watch that he's limited. Wait till Thursday and Friday, and it's just going to be a headache. So I'm not out because I do know there will be leagues where he's sitting there like 12, 13, and I'll go, meh, draft him, throw him on my IR, wait for whenever he wants to play, maybe even trade fodder. Not advocating trade fodder, but just in general, I don't know. Who knows at that point?
Yeah.
But I am right there with you. He is the ranking is before the high ankle sprain, so I can't even sit here and play the game and say that I was terrified of the backfield and wanted nothing to do with them. No, I actually did kind of want pieces of it. Running backs that go in the first round are gold for fantasy football. They smash all the time. Travion Henderson, even for what he was last year, even running backs that go in the second round. But with his capital, being the highest paid running back of all time at his age, I wasn't not going to be out of it just because, like you're saying, the crazy committee, which it is a crazy committee, even with the contract where they took him. It would be a little insane to be taking him where his ADP is right now in the middle of the third round. That's obviously going to skyrocket. That's going to shoot down the other way, not skyrocket, plummet. Terminology, vocab. I'm just Jeremiah Love. It sucks because we literally saw it. We had it. We literally for 5 minutes and then poof. And
they were giving it. They were giving him all kinds of touches, and then it just. And then you're like, no.
They did it on purpose, Ben. They did it on purpose.
I think you hit the nail on the head. For a lot of people, there was like one final string that was keeping him in there. It was just like it looked so good, and then that final string snapped. So for me, 2027 is the year of Jeremiah Love. Especially, he'll probably slide in terms of his ADP next year. Don't deal with this year, especially because it's a bad team. All right, well,
it really does suck.
It's so frustrating. And it's kind of a sour note to end our running back rankings on. So that's why we are going to deliver the big surprise, the breaking news, the announcement that we've had. Folks, we've talked about it before that there will be, there was a mock draft, obviously, on Sunday. So with this announcement, I'm so happy to say that there will be a live draft on this show. September 1st, we will be bringing you the 302 Birds fantasy football draft live on 1 o'clock somewhere. To add to it, you will be able to join us for this fantasy show, for this live draft. We will be at Founding Brothers in Newark. It is right off of Main Street in Newark, right around the campus of University of Delaware. Founding Brothers, an awesome restaurant and bar. Dalton will be there. KJ McCoy will be there. Myself. We'll see if we can get Jarrett there.
I'll be there. I'm coming. I'll be there.
Awesome. So the crew, Joey's going to be there. Mooner's going to be there. It is going to be awesome. And we were going to do the show live here and then live at Founding Brothers. So it'll be streaming live at Founding Brothers. You can join us for the show. You can also join us on the live stream as well. And we will bring you the actual 302 Fantasy Football League draft. So KJ McCoy, we already decided the draft order. KJ McCoy is officially on the clock. And whenever he announces his pick, which will be at Founding Brothers September 1st at 7 o'clock is when we're going to do it. I'm excited for it, man. It's going to be an awesome time. And I can't wait to meet some of our fans and viewers. And Jarrett, we've talked through cameras before. I've never met you in person, so I can't wait to be able to hang with you.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, dude. We'll cheers a beer together and we'll talk some fantasy football with the crew.
Nah, I can't wait. Live drafts. If you guys are not aware of them, you need to do them. If your commissioner sitting there and you're logging in on ESPN or Sleeper and you're just letting the draft go and it's sorry, babe, I got to draft at 8. You going on your phone? You're doing it wrong. You got to do it in person. It's always a great time with people.
It is so much better to a live. And by the way, I just got the boards came in today, so I actually have the board upstairs. Yeah, I'm excited for the stickers. You're putting a sticker up there. There's something satisfying about that. Yeah, it's going to be great.
It's personal on the first.
Yes, exactly. We'll actually, so the next show, we'll probably go over the draft order and we'll tease that a little bit there. But the next show we'll have for you will be Sunday. it will be the wide receiver ranking show. So we'll kind of do it similar to what we did today, where we kind of just went through tiers of wide receivers. And there's a lot to talk about because obviously Jordan Tyson's injury, where we have Carnell Tate, who we like at the back end because it's some weird wide receiver layouts in these drafts. So we'll talk about all that Sunday. But what an awesome show today. We did running back rankings. And Jarrett, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Always per usual, Benny. Anytime with you, I'm having a good time.
Awesome. Well, we will talk to you again Sunday. But remember, it may not be 1 o'clock here, but it's 1 o'clock somewhere. Take care.
It's 1 o'clock somewhere, a fantasy football podcast. With Jarrett. And Benny. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time. It's 1 o'clock somewhere, a fantasy football podcast.